Hey guys, just doing some work on the old Hilux this week. It'll probably take more than a week. Probably take like about a month. But the plan is its MOT is due soon, and it had an advisory for some corrosion on the rear upper and lower control arms. Generally underneath it's quite crispy. It's not structural. I mean the chassis is so thick it can get away with quite a heavy surface corrosion. I've had this truck quite some time, and I've been underneath before and done some repairs, like wax oil paint and things like that, just to keep it sort of under control. And it's time to have everything done properly on it. So we've got a few other tasks that we need to undertake. We need to replace those rear upper and lower control arms. We've got new ones of those. I couldn't get a new panhard bar, but I've managed to get new bushers. So we're going to clean up the original panhard bar and fit new bushers. The axle casing itself is quite corroded, and as you can see, the floor's quite corroded. Chassis is quite corroded. This truck's had quite a bit of work done to it at the front end, but not so much at the back end. It has had a new exhaust in the time that I've owned it. It's getting on a bit now, but it's still fine. It's had a new suspension kit. It did come with a 2-inch lift kit, but it was so tired. Shocks were terrible on it. So it's got a new kit on there. It's a couple of years old again now. And what we're going to do is we've got a slight leak from the diff to prop shaft oil seal. So we're going to fit a new one of those, but we're going to take the entire rear axle off. So disconnect all the brakes, handbrake, suspension, upper and lower control arms, get all of those off, and take the entire rear axle off as one, which will create a bit more space to do all the painting and repairs on the underside of the floor and the chassis. Then when we refit it, we'll refit the new bars, new panhard bars with the bushers, and all paint everything up and make it look pretty. And we've got new rear drums and shoes and wheel cylinders to go on as well. I think the brake lines the actual copper lines were replaced a little while back as well, so they're okay. And I've got some ideas on if you can see this weird contraption. This was my I'm in the process or half attempt at making a spare wheel carrier that sits underneath, because I think the Hilux Surf Gen2s had it underneath, but the Gen3s didn't. They had it on the tailgate. When we got this, it had it on the tailgate, but it had the usual problem of warm bushers on it, and it was making a horrible rattling noise every time you drive down the road. So I took that off. I did try and replace the bushers, but I just didn't have a suitable drill to drill out the 20mm accurately enough, so I gave in on that idea. And started doing this, opting to put it underneath, which is almost done. I was going to use the catch system that held the original one. Sorry, there's a massive plane coming over. Oh no, it's a helicopter. The main thing of this truck is that it just keeps working, and that's why I invested the money in a lot of the components up at the front, and again I'll be doing it at the back. And it's got the 3-litre turbocharged intercooler engine, which is absolutely bulletproof. And I think it's only done about 230,000 kilometres, which isn't a lot for one of those. And the transmission, 4-wheel drive system all works absolutely perfectly. So it's the sort of truck that I don't mind investing in, replacing components, steering components, suspension, ball joints, track rod ends, that sort of thing, because it'll just keep going. So as long as we keep the chassis together, so that's what's getting some love. But I'm trying to get this rear bumper off. That's today's job, because typical Hilux Surf Gen 3, they rot from the inside out. It's just a huge collection area for debris at the back there, and it just rots them from the inside out. So it's the same on both corners. This one's probably slightly worse. Poke at it, you probably create holes. So I've seen some Surfs where they make their own rear bumpers, which I'm debating doing. I want to take it off and see what I've got, and I might make something up. I've already played around with the front end a little bit. Obviously it's got the 2-inch lift kit, and we've took off the lower valance section and just cut the trim sections down here. This is all original bumper, it's just the plastic crap that was on there has come off. So it gives a bit more clearance at the front end. I would like to, the ends of the chassis rails here, I want to put a big bar that goes across and then build up, like a big bar across there, and then build up a structure that sort of protects the front end a bit, just because where we live up in Scotland, the risk of a deer strike is quite high, and we already had one incident at the front, hence there's a missing bit here. It wasn't a deer, but it was one of the logging lorries, because there's a lot of timber lorries and things like that that use the roads. It must have thrown up a massive rock which just annihilated the headlight, that annihilated the indicator, hence all the rash and scars on here. And it did put a bit of there's a bit of a rash of where some debris hit on the screen. But that was quite scary, because it was a hell of a bang, and you know, it's pitch dark at night and you're just driving along, and next thing you know, just this almighty crash. And yeah, so but I managed to get a new second-hand headlight, new indicator, and I've got this trim panel, just haven't put it in, so a bit of protection at the front would be nice. But like I say, today's job is the taking the rear bumper off, and we've already shared the top mudguard bolt, and we did the same the other side. I think the bottom one's coming undone. Yeah, that seems to be playing fair. I've already loosened some of the major bolts underneath. I used the needle scaler to get the corrosion off. There we go. Rather than trying to do it from here, these bolts, which they're just, you can't even see that they look like bolts anymore, they're so corroded. We managed to take off the two up here. We just needle scaled all the crap off, and they did undo, so they're just loosened now. There's one bolt here and one right up here. This one was fine, that one was a nightmare, but we got that undone, so we've got to do the same the other side. So I shall crack on and get those undone, and we'll probably have to take the plastic off. Might have to take this off, get it out of the way, disconnect the electrics for the tow bar and the fog light, and see if it wants to play ball. I'll bring you back once I've made some progress. Sorry, but Scotch locks are not an acceptable way of connecting wires. Just because they include them in the kit doesn't mean you have to use them. Bloody horrible things. Arrgh. There we go. One crusty bumper removed. This is the carnage left behind. If I flip this over, you'll see just how bad why they rot out, you see. That is just, let me get a pokey thing, hang on.
Yeah, just a trap for so much dirt. You could grow tomatoes in there. See, I always jet washed under the car. I've got this like U-bend attachment for my pressure washer. I always give it a good blast underneath to get any salt off, which is quite important up here in Scotland. But that corner, you just can't reach it, and it just collects so much crap. And rots out the bumper. I say I went for the bolts here and here, as opposed to these, which I don't think they were going to come undone. Doesn't even look like a bolt. Well, I think it's a nut actually, but yeah, that ain't going to come off. So we did it from those ones. And even I thought it was two here, and there's one up on the corner and one at the side, but there was one here that was hidden, and they're normally 12mm, but these were so mashed I ended up having to hammer on an 11mm to get those off. Luckily they did turn and come undone. But yeah, sediment build up causes that. And this is what we're left with. Like I say, the chassis is crusty, but it's so thick that you can needle scale all of this off, and you'll get down to good metal, and then you can protect it with like a rust encapsulator paint, and then like an underbody chassis wax and things like that. You can do the cavity wax as well, which is what I'm going to be doing. So at least we've got the bumper out of the way. I'm going to take this tow bar out of the way next, and go from there. I needle scaled on the inside of one of the corner pieces. I disconnected it from the centre bar, and as suspected, poked a few holes through it. So I'm not sure if I'm going to reuse these. As I was thinking that obviously they go like so, but kind of where my thumb is, I was thinking of cutting it down to that height, but I'll keep them aside because I'm undecided yet until I build sort of the rear structure of the bumper. But I don't want to buy new ones of those because they're £144 each, so a bit pricey. But now I've got the car up on axle stands, and we're going to start disassembling everything that we need to disconnect to get the rear axle off. So I'm going to crack on and do that, and I won't film much of it because I'll just sort of get on and get undone seized bolts and things. And I'll bring you back when I've made some progress, probably when the axle's out, we'll see. I think I started at 1 and it's about 5:30 now, so that's how long it took. Every bolt was seized, rounded, terrible, usual story. But we got her out, so. See, it's generally quite crispy. But there's still meat on there, so it's one of those jobs that if you want this truck to be around in the future, looking at the condition it's in, now's the time to act, sort of thing, because if you leave it much longer you will start getting problems. I don't know how much that shows up under here because it's quite dark now.
So tomorrow's job will be taking the fuel tank out and disconnecting the fuel filler line, etc. I need to unbolt the upper arms from there. I just disconnected them from the axle for the sake of getting the axle out. This is the panhard bar. You can see it's quite crispy. So the fuel tank is not too bad. It's had I put a new strap on it a little while back because that gave up the ghost. And it's got I don't know how well that shows up, but the metal fuel filler lines and breather, vent line, they're heavily corroded. I'm surprised they're not leaking. So we had one slight issue, that the brake union, you probably can't see, but there's a brake union up there that goes to this flexi. That would have been the easiest place to undo the brake lines, so that you can leave everything attached on the axle and just disconnect it from this flexi. But that was rounded and seized solid. So looking at also the condition of the brake, the solid copper line up here, this one is corroded. So it runs along this chassis here, goes along, and somewhere around here there's like a union, and everything forward of here is really good on the car, but this back section is I don't know, got a lot of corrosion. So I'm gonna make a new brake line up for that, I just cut that flexi, so we'll get a new flexi, make up a new brake line and do all that when we put it back together. But for now, I'm filthy. It's been a long day. But we got the axle out, so that was the goal of today, and we've achieved that. So I shall see you guys tomorrow.